Hi, all. Welcome to this session on wherein we shall be discussing basics of organizational strategy. This is a chapter that is taught in the course of Principles of Management, and we shall take a deep dive into what all comprise the basics of organizational strategy. There we go. The objectives of this part of the chapter is to specify the components of sustainable competitive advantage. We shall look into each of these at length when we are discussing the topics and explain why it's important, of course. Describe the steps involved in the strategy making process. Okay, so as we understand, we may be having a basic understanding of what strategy is in order to in alignment with an organizational vision. The organizations have to draw a plan, a long-term plan uh, of about a year, 2 years, or 5 years, which is then broken down into various goals and targets. So this long-range planning in alignment with the organization's vision is what we refer to as organizational strategy. Okay, let's take a deeper look into what it comprises. Competitive advantage. So resources. What do you mean by resources? The as it suggests, the assets, capabilities of the organization. What is the inherent, basic, fundamental capability of an organization? Say, for instance, Qualcomm or Intel. What are the fundamental capabilities of these organizations? Dealing with the chips, the silicon, semiconductors, or what is the basic capability of firms like McKinsey, KPMG, or Deloitte? So the common thread, the common capability that passes through these organizations is consulting, management consulting services, financial consulting, auditing, etc. Likewise, processes. What are the fundamental processes? When you say process, organizations like McDonald's, right? Organizations, all or not only organizations of this kind, but organizations generally have extremely methodical, organized processes in place, which makes the tasks, which makes the works, the various jobs streamlined, smoothened, and predictable, right? Leaving less room for uncertainties and surprises, right? Employee time, information, and knowledge that an organization controls. So those are the critical resources that offer competitive advantage to an organization. Likewise, so what is competitive advantage? Providing greater value for customers than what the competitors can offer to them, right? For instance, when you think of products um, like say Maruti Suzuki, right? Why do you think is Maruti Suzuki the greatest market share holder in the Indian automotive sector? Because they have championed the art and science of understanding the the Indian consumer taste, inclination, preferences, and demands, and they have been consistently making such cars that fit into the various demographic parameters of the Indian customers. May it be the price, may it be the models, may it be the mileage, the technical specifications that are preferred by an Indian customer are well understood by Maruti Suzuki, and that's its competitive advantage, right? Likewise, if you look at um, um, that's what we mean essentially by providing greater value for customers than what their competitors can offer. For instance, Geo, we have seen Geo, which has created a kind of revolution in the telecom market space by by crashing down the prices of the telecom, the talk time, the subscription to the talk time by the consumers. Initially, they offered it for free of cost, and they made their assured customer base, and that had a profound adverse impact on its competitors like BSNL, like Tata Docomo, like Idea Vodafone, and that's because of the competitive advantage, their control, Geo's control on the pricing and on the various offers that they had announced that assured them a large customer base in a market like India, right? So what is sustainable competitive advantage? As it suggests, when other companies cannot duplicate the value a firm is providing to customers. What do you mean by that? When you are offering to the customers a service or a product which is inimitable, which cannot be replicated, which cannot be duplicated, which cannot just be copied by a competitor. That is something that offers sustainability to the offerer of this particular. So okay, we'll look into each of these. Sustainable competitive advantage. Uh, so that that so what are the various criteria? What are the various essential requirements for a competitive advantage to be sustainable? Your offering must be valuable, right? Your offering must be something rare, something that is not copyable, not easily creatable, imperfectly imitable, or in other words, something that is inimitable, something that cannot be easily replicated, copied, and created by a competitor, a possible competitor, right? And not so very easily substitutable. So resources that's valuable. What can you think of an example here? Resources that's valuable. So if you think of what do you think makes the companies like Qualcomm and Intel sustainable? The very raw material that goes into the chips and semiconductors, silicon. You should understand the market, the demand and supply of this element called silicon, which is largely used to make the chips and semiconductors. And what is the application of chips and semiconductors? It goes into anything that is electronic and that is digital in nature, right? Your computers, your gaming consoles, or your car software. Wherever there's a software, there's an application of chips and semiconductors, and there is hence an application of silicon. So your company must understand the backward and forward integration of where is it coming from and where it is going to. Both must be very clearly understood, and that's what makes these companies like Qualcomm and Intel valuable, because they understand both the backward and forward integration of this thing called silicon, and they've understood the sector well, and they stand as one of the tallest chips and semiconductor players in the tech space. What you offer must be something rare. Even here, this thing called the silicon fits because, as you know, the Earth's crest is running out of silicon, which makes it a very dear, very costly, a rare commodity, and in fact, it is running so much short of of a resource that now the players in this segment are actually on a lookout as to what can fit into it as a substitute. So now when such a core raw fundamental component is running out of supply, which means a new opportunity, a new market is opening for more players. Silicon is running out. Now what can fit into silicon? Probably carbon, and people are experimenting in all the possible ways as to what form of carbon. Something called graphene. You may have heard of graphite, something that you use at the end of your pencil, at the nose of your pencil to draw on the paper, that's graphite. So another version, chemical version of another bonding, another bond version of graphite called graphene is going to be the possible substitute to silicon to be used as. So that's a big opportunity for for the players, because something as fundamental as silicon into the making of semiconductors is being substituted, is being replaced with something even more fundamental, right? So you have to be inimitable, you have to be imperfectly imitable, or in other words, you should be inimitable. What you make should not be easily imitable. It could be your business model, or it could be your product, or it could be your service, or it could be your process steps. It should not be easily imitable. That makes you a market leader. So for instance, McDonald's, what does McDonald's make? McDonald's make burgers, and there are many more burger making companies. But what is it that makes McDonald's a market leader? It is not the burger itself, but then the process steps that it has championed through these years, which makes the order to delivery duration that a McDonald's store takes to cover the entire length of putting the order and delivering the burger to the customer the least as compared to its competitors. So they have designed such an effective, such an efficient process around their ordering and delivering a gap, which makes that an inimitable service for any competitor, which is why we see McDonald's is still the market leader in the fast food retail space, right? Likewise, non-substitutable. You are offering something that's absolutely non-substitutable. What can fit into non-substitutable? What can be an example of an unsubstitutable commodity? Say a product that is, so what it could be any aspect. It could be an aspect of the product itself or its price. Maybe the company must have championed the art of pricing the product so well that the pricing itself is not substitutable by the competitors. So when it comes to pricing, something that strikes you is Maruti Suzuki again. The pricing is so very well, very appropriately suits the customers of India, that pricing, it is very tough to come anywhere close to a Maruti car when it comes to. So that's not very easily that makes it not very easily substitutable by a competitor. Okay, so those were the 4 criteria that we should remember when it comes to sustainable competitive advantage. That you're offering, your resources must be valuable, must be rare, must be inimitable, and must be non-substitutable. Okay, so that's the strategy making process. You can see that the diagram on the screen is classifying the strategy making process into 3 steps, where the first step is about assess the need for a strategic change, right? So what is it that is necessitating you? Where do you need to change the strategy, existing strategy? So for instance, if you consider that the major shift that the entire automotive sector is going through now, there is a necessity for the automakers or automobile makers to bring in shift in strategy. Why? Because they see politically and internationally the countries and the governments of the world are putting a stress on phasing out your petrol and diesel driven vehicles, and they are putting stress on electric vehicles. So when there is a pressure from the international um, bodies, from the governing councils, and hence from the countries and the ruling governments of the countries. There is an immense pressure on the makers of these automobiles, may it be two-wheelers or three-wheelers or four-wheelers. There is an immense pressure on these companies to shift from petrol and diesel driven vehicles to electric vehicles. Uh, so that might necessitate some companies like the companies, the automaking companies, mobile making companies like Maruti, Tata Motors, Hyundai. All these companies are in a race, and not only that, it might call for a shift in strategy also on the part of the battery makers. The battery makers who have been concentrating on the lithium batteries until now. Now they have to concentrate on making, on addressing the need for the automobile makers demand. Who will make the batteries that fit into the cars? They can't expand, they can't diversify from making cars to making batteries. So all these battery making companies, like in Indian context, you have Amaron, you have Exide, you have Tata Power. All these companies now have immense pressure on them to come up with batteries that fit into automobiles, right? Earlier, though, it was not their core competence, but then now that there's a huge shift, huge wave in the market. The entire automobile sector is shifting from diesel and petrol to battery. The battery making companies are now expanding their scope from the conventional batteries to automobile batteries too. So all these companies, established companies, are waking up to the call for making. Why? Because the startups have already started doing it. If you look at the companies like Lohum, Lohum, or Nexus, or Ziptrax, these are some of the startup companies which have caught up with the pace and have already started making the electric batteries that fit into the automobiles. So it doesn't take too long for the small companies to catch up with the new wave and become big and become a threat to the big companies like Amaron or Exide, Tata Power. So now it's a fierce race that's going on among the battery making companies, the startups and the established companies, because there is a need for strategic change, and there is a need for these established companies to get out of their inertia, competitive inertia, right? The state of rest or the state of uniform motion. They have to come out of their state of rest or their state of uniform motion, and they have to identify need for the hour, and they have to offer something that the demand is that the market is looking for, the customers may be demanding for, um, and they have to look for what, as you read here, look for strategic dissonance. What do you mean by strategic dissonance? Which means, are strategic actions consistent with the company's strategic intent or not? What is the strategic dissonance? Where can you see when there is a difference between strategic action and strategic uh, intent, right? Say, for instance, if you look at this infamous case of Maggie, the 2 minutes noodles, right? What is the strategic intent of any fast food? They promise to provide, as they advertise, as they are heard in their advertisements, they advertise that they intend to provide a healthy snack food that can be made as instantly as in 2 minutes, right? Whereas what was seen in action when a Maggie was found about 5 years ago, when a food investigative body examined the Maggie packets, you may remember that it was found to be uh, laden with an impermissible amounts of a salt called monosodium glutamate, right? MSG, monosodium glutamate, which is not very good for health, which might affect people, their mental health, and it was taken to objection, and hence all the Maggie packets on the racks of various superstores, kiranas, were taken out, and there was a huge chaos. Now, what happens, what calls for such a situation? When your promise and your action, your intent and your action, when there is a gap, when they are not in the same direction, which is when you say there is some kind of strategic dissonance, which should be avoided. What you promise should be same as what you deliver, right? That's when you are in strategic alignment. Your action is in alignment with your strategy, and so that's what you mean by assess need for strategic change, right? So there was, of course, the Nestle had to undergo a huge transformation, image wise, product wise, campaigning wise, and hence it had to change its strategy, right? Okay, so the need why it might call for a change in strategy. One, it could be competitive inertia, because competition is growing, competition is rising, and you are sleeping. So that could be a wake up call, and you could ask for a strategic change, or it could be strategic dissonance, right? Which we just discussed. Okay, so once you realize that you have a need to bring in change in strategy, then you go to step two, that is conduct situational analysis. Situational analysis, what do you mean by that? How do you conduct a situational analysis? You are examining the environment around your company, inside your company, and outside the organization. So inside, what you do, you're doing a quick SWOT analysis, right? Internally, what are your strengths? Say, for instance, Patanjali, when it had come new into the market with its various FMCG products offering fast moving consumer goods, like it had launched way back, we're talking about 2016, 2015, or a little earlier than that, I guess, when it released into market a list of its products, FMCG products, like various packed juices, various tonics, and various the flours, atta, and the snack items, noodles, etc. And it goes without saying that it was already facing. It was the FMCG market is one of the most crowded, toughest, competitive markets, where you have already existing players like ITC, Godrej, Nestle, and bigwigs, which were already occupying the markets. So it saw what are its strengths. If it had to do an internal environment evaluation analysis, what are its strengths? Its strengths are probably they have their own facilities, and their products are authentic, and they are coming with a strong backing from the Indian ethos, Indian value system, based on Ayurveda, based on fundamentals, and that, while that was its strength, what are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities that it had? What are the weaknesses? Weaknesses is, it could be probably it's a newbie. It is hardly anybody knows the company, and what are the threats? Threats are already the sharks and the whales that are already existing in the market. You have an ITC, you have a Godrej, you have a Hamdard, you have a Dabur, you have Nestle. All these people are already enjoying a share in the market of the FMCG of food and beverages segment. So it was definitely an extremely daunting, difficult task. But what was an opportunity? there are opportunities. People, the products that are sold, most of the products that they claim to be healthy are not turning out to be healthy. They are excessive salted, or they are of least value, of nutritional value, less nutritional value, or laden with the things like monosodium glutamate. So those were the opportunities for Patanjali to bring in a product that promises to be healthy, at the same time not pricey. So it did a quick situational analysis with the help of strengths and weaknesses of internal atmosphere and opportunities and threats that it sees from outside, and it came in to the segment. So that's those are. And the third one, choose strategic alternatives. What are the alternatives that you have? It may be risky to put all your eggs in the same basket. What are the various alternatives that you have? So, for instance, what are the risk avoiding? What are the risk avoiding strategies that you see in the existing strategy? Say, what are the strategies you can take to protect your existing competitive advantage? And so, do you have a need to avoid the risk, or do you have a need to seek the risk? Who are the risk avoiders and who are seek? So, for instance, if you take Ford Motors in the Indian context, Ford Motors, which is a car maker from the US of United States of America, and you have, as you saw, that Ford didn't do that great in India, and finally, vis-a-vis the prices, the products that it was making, and the sales that it was reporting, one fine day it decided that India is not a potential market for Ford Motors anymore, so we can't take the risk of sticking on to Indian market anymore. So that's where they are. They're avoiding the Indian market, and they went away. They sold off their properties and facilities in India to Tata Motors, and they went back. They went out of Indian market. Risk-seeking strategy, where you as an entrepreneur, as a business person, you see a lot of opportunity in your ideas, plans, vision for the organization, and you don't mind taking risks. For instance, the kind of products that Tesla, another car maker from United States of America, when you look at Tesla, it is constantly on a risk-taking mode, right? May it be smart trucks or driverless cars, or the T model of Tesla, or so the various products that are the underground tunnels, all the ideas, any idea that you see floated by Tesla, or more precisely Elon Musk, the founder Tesla, is risk-seeking because they see opportunity and they see strength in their own idea, and so your competitive advantage can either be protected by avoiding the risk, or be strengthened by seeking risk and rolling out your strategy. So that makes the three steps of making strategy. You assess the need for strategic change, conduct a situation analysis, and then choose the strategic alternatives, whether you should seek risk or you should avoid risk. Okay, so that takes us to, okay, so we'll take each of these steps. I think we've discussed it at quite a length. We'll so assess, as we discussed, competitive inertia we have discussed. Difficult because there's a lot of uncertainty in business. Yes, you have to look through the uncertainty. And also, top managers are often slow to recognize the competitive inertia and strategic dissonance. So we discuss this. And then we've discussed the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We've discussed this. Internal analysis. Internally, you have to see what is it that differentiates you from others. What is the distinctive competence that your company possesses as against the others, right? Something that a company can make or do perform better than competitors. What can you think of in this regard? So, for instance, the bulk drugs and the generic drugs segment is a huge segment in Indian context, and this is where this company called Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, they have championed the art of the bulk drugs making in the company in the country, right? So they have tie-ups with the original drug manufacturers from across the world, from US, from Europe, and they make the generic versions in bulk for the customers in India with a lot significantly reduced price, and they market for the drug. So that's what provides a distinct distinction or for Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. So that's something that it can do, make or perform better than other competitors. Likewise, if you look at what else can you think of a company which is so good at making something or offering something and better than its competitors. So, for instance, State Bank of India, what makes it the biggest bank in the country? While you have the rivals like HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank, what makes SBI still the biggest? It's not that it is far more intelligent in terms of product and services, but what makes SBI unique is its spread and presence. It is almost present in every village, every nook, every corner of the country of India, right? And that makes it competent more competent as compared to its rivals or competitors, right? Core capabilities. What are the core capabilities? Less visible, internal decision-making routines, problem-solving processes, organization cultures, right? So core capabilities which are largely invisible. What are those? Your culture, organization culture, or the leadership. These are not some things that are easily and tangible or visible or clear to everybody, but then internally they drive the organizations effectively and efficiently towards the desired goal, right? So distinctive competence and core capabilities are the components of internal analysis. Okay, so we've discussed this: choosing strategic alternatives, risk avoiding, and risk seeking. Okay, so that's strategic reference points. What are strategic reference points? As you see, there could be two goals of there could be two ways in which you can end with certain strategy. You are arriving at an undesired result, or you are arriving at a desired result. Obviously, what is desirable? You are arriving at a desired result. So how do you arrive at a desired result? You look at the current situation, and you may not be very satisfied and with it, and you are forming a perception of new issues, opportunities. So, for instance, if a car maker is quite satisfied with the kind of cars that it is making, right? That the cars that run with diesel and fuel, and if you are very happy with the number of cars that you are making, and you don't want to know what is next, what is the new wave that is going to come and influence the entire segment, and you're happy with your market share, your revenues, and the number of units that you're selling, and you're sleeping like the one on the top of the globe is sleeping. You never know when a huge wave of change might come and might disrupt the entire space, and you may be left behind by your competitors in no time. So, for instance, what's happening in car making, there's a huge wave of change which is compelling the car makers to shift from diesel and petrol engines to batteries, right? So and then this is a phase of disruption when you see the number threes and fours actually climbing up to number one, and number ones might slide away and might be left behind by the the others, right? So for instance, if you look at the Indian car making companies, Tata Motors is one of the very initial car makers who have been very fast, swift enough to instill a battery run car making unit in Tata Motors plant, and they are already out there in the market with various versions, various models of battery car making. Of course, there are other companies too, but Tata Motors, you take it Nexon or Harrier or most of the models of Tata Motors are out there with the battery driven models. Whereas, as we see Maruti Suzuki, it is yet to start. It is nowhere there in competition. That might be a huge risk on the part of the car, because it enjoys already a lion's share, a majority share of the market share in the passenger vehicles in India. And if they don't act swift in the right time, there could be a possibility of being left behind by competitors. Okay, so that's what perception of new issues, opportunity, potential gain, positivity, and then you respond, right? Instead of sitting, taking a relaxed posture, you evaluate what is the need of the hour, how do you need to shift your gears, what is the new strategy that you should adopt. You take the risk, you take bold moves, you make decisions, and then you are gearing up to go ahead and you meet the desired result, right? Okay, that was about strategic reference point. And okay, so how do you look at strategy at the corporate level, industry level, and firm level is something that we shall be looking up in this part of the lecture shortly.